Good evening and welcome to this Christmas Eve edition of CBC Toronto News. I'm Dwight Drummond. With a province-wide lockdown still 2 days away, we broke another record for daily coronavirus cases in Ontario. 2,447 cases were reported today, also marking the 10th straight day cases have been at more than 2,000. 49 people died from COVID in our province, while Ontario labs processed more than 64,000 coronavirus test samples yesterday. If life is going to get back to normal in 2021, it's going to have a lot to do with an effective vaccine rollout. And tonight, some doctors are pushing the province to change its current strategy, which holds back half of the COVID-19 vaccines to give people their second shot. Lauren Pelly explains why giving people one dose sooner may save more lives.
Since Canada's approved COVID-19 vaccines require 2 doses, Ontario is among the regions holding back supplies, all to make sure recipients get both rounds. But a member of Canada's Immunity Task Force says
that consensus is changing now.
There's now a growing push to vaccinate as many people as possible. The vaccines are showing some level of efficacy even after 1 dose, while supply chains are growing more stable.
It probably makes more sense now to get everybody a dose now, knowing that there's going to be enough vaccine coming.
We have good protection even after the first dose.
British Columbia is among several other provinces already striving to vaccinate more people more quickly. New modeling from the University of Toronto shows a more flexible dosing approach could avoid more than 34% of symptomatic infections. The team hopes Ontario takes note.
If we could get more vaccines in the arms of long-term care residents as well as long-term care home workers, this could potentially avert a lot of infections that will happen over the coming weeks.
A spokesperson for the Ministry of Health told CBC News that for now, the province is sticking to its plans to save those second doses. And some other experts agree with erring on the side of caution.
I do think it's imperative to ensure that we have the doses on hand to be able to guarantee that they're going to experience the most efficacy possible.
Others say changing course is crucial as COVID-19 cases keep spiking.
Right now, when vaccine is scarce and when we know that it can save lives, I think, it's important to think about how we can maximize that.
Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
And the first shipment of the Moderna vaccine has arrived in Toronto from Paris. Canada is expected to receive 168,000 doses of the Moderna vaccine before the end of next week. Ottawa is buying a total of 40 million doses from Moderna. The bulk is set to be delivered in 2021. It's safe to say that frontline healthcare workers are on everybody's nice list this year. One Toronto woman is spending the evening playing Santa Claus, handing out presents to some of them at St. Joseph's Hospital. But as Kelda Yoon reports, all healthcare staff really want for Christmas is for all of us to stay safe and stay home.
On the night before Christmas, Natalie Gangbar is hoping to bring some cheer to those for whom the work doesn't stop at St. Joseph's Hospital.
I know someone who's a nurse at St. Joe's, and they're really exhausted. I think we're up to the brim.
Just a few hours earlier, Natalie and her coworker Kelly were busy stuffing the last few presents into their decorated vehicle. The idea came to her at the end of November when case counts were climbing rapidly.
And then I started thinking about the nurses and how we stopped banging pots and pans for them like we used to do at 7 o'clock. And so I thought, you know what? Maybe I can gather some gifts and go and drop them off at hospitals for the workers.
Some of the gifts Natalie bought, others were donated, many by small businesses that stepped up despite a tough year. Besides St. Joseph's, Natalie will be delivering gifts at Mount Sinai Hospital on Christmas Day.
I noticed this poster appear in our office last week, kind of mysteriously, and it said on Christmas morning, if you come out to the parking lot, there'll be somebody there handing out gifts. So it feels really nice to have those kinds of gestures.
Dr. Tejbar says the month of December has been particularly stressful, and those at the hospital are anticipating an even tougher January.
The last few weeks, we've noticed a big increase in the number of patients who are admitted to the intensive care unit.
What is your biggest wish this Christmas?
Ooh, good question. I think my biggest wish is again, that people just sort of stay to themselves and stay in their own households and, try not to do too much.
Natalie hopes the presents will serve as a token of appreciation.
I hope that they just feel love.
But she too has the same Christmas wish, and that is for people to
Be safe, stay home. And I know it's really hard, but that's what I really hope for.
She plans to be at Mount Sinai at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning to hand out the rest of the presents. Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
There was an early start to Christmas Eve Mass at the Vatican tonight.
Volendo santificare il mondo con la sua piissima venuta.
Because of the pandemic, only about 100 people attended, and everyone except the Pope wore a mask. It also started much earlier this year to allow everyone to get home before Rome's 10 p.m. curfew. The Archdiocese of Toronto says Christmas Eve celebrations are moving ahead through a live stream at 8 p.m. Cardinal Thomas Collins says it's crucial that worshipers stay safe and follow health protocols.
Still in the midst of a pandemic, and we must make every effort to reduce the potential transmission of COVID-19. We're also trying to balance that reality with the essential dimension of faith communities in our city.
Regions that are already in lockdown will limit church attendance to 10 people, while other regions will see about 20% capacity. They are asking Catholics in the GTA not to travel outside their area. Right before Christmas, Nick, and the weather seems perfect if you're riding in a sleigh.
Yeah, exactly. We started to see that transition from rain to snow. I told you it was coming, and it's here right now. In fact, it's a pretty big system that's moving across. So the blue, of course, is the snow. The rain is indicated there in the green, and there's a mess of watches and warnings with this. Now, these are special weather statements here talking about the potential for poor driving conditions, the transition from snow to rain. We've got snowfall warnings in effect as well. Freezing rain in the pink, and then also rainfall warnings as we head a little bit further east. That's a closer look as to what you can expect. About 10 to 20 centimeters of snow from Hamilton down through St. Catharines, Niagara. West end of the GTA, 10 to 15 centimeters. East end, closer to about 5 to 10 with mixed precipitation. This is what it looks like right now on the radar, and you see that snow line just cutting through the east end of the GTA. Here's the thing, though. You put this forecast board into motion, it doesn't really move, and that's why we've got freezing rain warnings out around the Durham region, because we're going to sit in extended periods of freezing rain. That's tonight. By tomorrow morning, most people seeing snowfall, but the bulk of the snow coming to the west end of the GTA. In behind it, some lingering snow flurries and also some snow from snow squalls. So this is tomorrow morning, widespread light snow, and then as we head through Saturday, snow squalls are going to kick in, and areas up around Lake Huron and Georgian Bay are going to see heavier amounts. So what can you expect by tomorrow morning? This is a look at Christmas morning, about 5 to 15 centimeters across the GTA, depending on where you are. As we move through tomorrow into Saturday, heavier amounts up north of the city, and that because of the snow squalls. Here's a look at tonight's forecast. Temperatures down to -2, snow. Icy conditions, though, out toward the Durham area. Wind chills tonight, -8 degrees, and or rather tomorrow, -8 degrees. -1 with the actual temperature itself. Windy conditions into Saturday as well. Bit of a bump in our temperatures through Monday. Dwight.
Thanks, Nick.
The weather is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. It's hard to stop a train.
Donald Trump is closing out the year and his presidency with a series of controversial pardons, including longtime associates and people with family ties. Katie Nicholson has the details.
It was one of the most lurid cases in New Jersey history. But last night, Charles Kushner got a presidential pardon. Kushner's son, Jared, is married to Ivanka Trump, making this the first time President Trump issued a pardon to someone with a family tie. In 2004, Charles Kushner pleaded guilty to 16 counts of tax evasion and witness tampering after he hired a sex worker to ensnare and gain leverage over his brother-in-law, who was cooperating with federal investigators. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie prosecuted the case.
I mean, it's one of the most loathsome, disgusting crimes that I prosecuted when I was U.S. Attorney.
On Wednesday, Trump also pardoned 2 players from the Mueller investigation. Former campaign chair Paul Manafort, who was repeatedly questioned about his ties to a Russian intelligence officer and sentenced to 7 years for fraud, and campaign advisor Roger Stone, convicted of witness tampering and 7 counts of lying to Congress. Trump commuted his sentence in the summer. Both men were unwilling and at times hostile witnesses in the Russia probe. Condemnation of the pardons was swift and scathing. Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar tweeting, "The president isn't draining the swamp, he's pardoning it."
It's not even close to what the pardon power was designed to do. The pardon power is designed to be uplifting. It's designed to introduce mercy into a system of justice, which sometimes can be unmerciful.
It's sad that a commander-in-chief has taken his powers and used them in this manner.
Even Republican Senator Ben Sasse called the pardons rotten to the core. George H.W. Bush was the last one-term Republican president. He granted clemency to 77 people. President Trump is now at 65 and counting, and there's certainty there will be more as the lame duck president flexes his pardon power in the final days of his administration. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Washington.
The United Kingdom and the European Union have reached a post-Brexit trade deal just a week before the deadline. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson made the announcement today.
So I'm very pleased to tell you this afternoon that we have completed the biggest trade deal yet, worth £660 billion a year, a comprehensive Canada-style free trade deal.
We got a shout out. The agreement follows months of disagreement over fishing rights and future business regulations. The UK and the EU are forming 2 separate markets and ending free movement of people between them. Today's announcement means the UK won't leave the union trade rules on the 31st without a deal. Critics were warning that a no-deal Brexit would have been an economic and logistical nightmare. The UK voted to leave the union back in 2016. It has been a lonely year for most people, but it's been especially isolating for our seniors.
There have been maybe 2 or 3 really black days where I felt, you know what, I can't do this anymore. For me, they're a lifeline.
After the break, how the pandemic caused a spike in call volumes for Seniors Helplines and why those on the other end of the line say the service is more important now than ever before. Friends of Pakistani dissident Karima Mehrab held a small protest outside Toronto Police headquarters this afternoon, pushing for answers days after her death.
We know that she was being threatened by many, many people. We are here to demand a full, transparent, in-depth investigation by the government into the circumstances of her death.
Toronto police say Mehrab drowned and that the circumstances do not seem suspicious. Her body was found Monday morning, a day after she had been reported missing. Mehrab had been critical of Pakistan's government and active in the struggle for autonomy in the province of Balochistan. She fled Pakistan amid terrorism charges in 2015 and eventually gained refugee status here in Canada. Amnesty International is urging the 37-year-old's death be immediately investigated. And Pakistani High Commission in Canada says it has approached the Canadian government to know the cause of her death. 11 staff at Mississauga Fire and Emergency Services have tested positive for COVID-19. The cases have impacted 4 fire stations and another 36 people are in isolation as a result. The city says there are more than enough firefighters despite the infections, with 630 staff spread across 21 fire stations. They add firefighters have been wearing protective equipment while attending scenes, and they also thank them for their frontline work. Public health is ensuring isolation protocols are followed. Faith leaders across the GTA have been preparing to reach their congregations in new ways this Christmas. Here's Nazima Walji on how they are adapting.
Midnight Mass traditions will carry on. Some churches will allow a limited number of people inside. Many others will host Mass virtually.
We have the live streaming where they can see me. But I think for me as a priest, and I'm sure I speak for many priests, we're kind of saddened by the fact that we can't be with our people, because that's what we're about.
People really miss the personal contact.
Church leaders say they've had to find ways to stay connected with their congregations.
This past Sunday, we had our Christmas drive-in service. We were FM transmitting to the cars, and it was so wonderful to be together in the same parking garage, worshiping together, singing together.
It's difficult because we can't really do in-person visits, and not all seniors who are isolated in their own homes have access to online platforms. So phone calls are really the way we try to keep up.
We kept the church open for the food bank. Last week, we were able to give away food for nearly 325 people.
Even though churches will be celebrating differently, they agree the spirit of Christmas is not lost.
It's put a fire under some of the initiatives that we've been working on, and really increased our sense of our belonging to this community.
We will be having the midnight mass on the Christmas Eve in the Indigenous Way celebration. It is their culture, it is their spirituality, and it is so beautiful and so meaningful to not only as human beings, but the entire creation comes together. I know there is that distance between us and the people, but in spirituality, I think we are all united.
Nazima Walji, CBC News, Toronto.
Even before the pandemic, many seniors were already suffering from loneliness and isolation. Now COVID-19 has made the problem much worse. The Toronto Seniors Helpline has fielded a record-breaking number of calls this year. Nicole Ireland has the story.
There were so many mornings where I'd wake up and I'd think, I can't do this. I can't do another day of COVID. I just can't do it. It's just too hard.
69-year-old Helena Boken has struggled with post-traumatic stress disorder for most of her life. When COVID-19 hit, everything got worse.
I was an absolute, total, complete nervous wreck.
Boken was already calling the Toronto Seniors Helpline to cope with her crippling anxiety and isolation, as many of her close friends have died. She was able to get out of her apartment for activities she loved, especially concerts, but that's all stopped.
When COVID hit, everything just took a dive.
Boken calls the helpline every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times. She says it's her lifeline in this pandemic.
Sometimes I just need to have human contact.
Experts say isolation among seniors is widespread at the best of times, and COVID has plunged more of our elderly neighbors into loneliness.
Maybe they don't have a family that's connected to them, or because of COVID or other reasons, they can't see their family, and so the formal services have to take that place of family.
Rochelle McAllister manages the helpline at Wood Green Community Services. She says they fielded more than 20,000 calls between April and October, the total for a whole year in 7 months. Some calls are practical questions, like how to get financial support, but others...
We've seen a huge spike in mental health crisis.
XJ Ng is one of the social workers answering those calls.
I remember speaking with a senior who was calling from a long-term care home and she had been in lockdown for months now, and it's just the sheer loneliness it's really heartbreaking.
Helena Boken wants other seniors to know they don't have to suffer alone.
If you're lonely or you're stressed or you're overwhelmed, reach out. Don't just sit there and wither on the inside, because it's really hard. We need each other.
Nicole Ireland, CBC News, Toronto.
Important advice there. Through the first wave and her third pregnancy, Dr. Paula Clayman worked on the front lines of the pandemic. She was nominated as one of our Frontline Heroes in the spring. Now, coming up, now that she's at home with a new baby, we'll talk to her about how she's still helping out and staying ready to jump right back in.
God forbid we become another Italy or another New York, and my team, who is really my family, needs me back there. I am for sure going to go back and help out.
You hear that? Sleigh bells joining the regular chorus of pots and pans. It was a gesture of gratitude for our healthcare workers through the first wave. And again tonight at 6 o'clock, this Etobicoke neighborhood cheered extra loud to make sure their thank you is heard far and wide this Christmas Eve. Working on the front lines of this pandemic is a tough job. It's a really tough job in the best of times. But imagine taking it on while pregnant. Dr. Paula Clayman did just that, not wanting to leave her patients or her colleagues behind. We featured Dr. Clayman as a frontline hero back in the spring. Taylor Simmons checked in with her recently, now at home on mat leave.
It's been actually an adventure, both wonderful but also terrifying. So working pregnant during the pandemic, not knowing anything about this virus, not knowing, the way that it transmits, going to get examined without my partner, and, having the baby and not having to have anyone around us to support us was very, very difficult.
And what's it been like sort of from the other side, watching from home and turning on the TV and seeing all the news about the pandemic and hospitals filling up?
It's very hard, just like it's hard for everybody. We see the numbers rise. If, God forbid, we become another Italy or another New York, and, my team, who is really my family, needs me back there, I am for sure going to go back and help out.
Hi, good morning. This is Dr. Clayman calling. How are you?
So virtual medicine has basically exploded during the pandemic. It's very difficult to assess someone over a screen.
From having been on the front line and now watching, is there something you think the public should know about what's going on inside our hospitals?
Two main things. The first one is, if you need to be seen in the emergency, don't wait at home. Go to the emergency. We're there for you. There has been a lot of people who have been delaying care because they are afraid of going to the emergency, to the hospital, and catching COVID. But that's the worst thing that you can do for yourself. The second is that we're there for you. So we're exposing ourselves and to help patients and whatnot. So what we ask to the public is, comply by the rules. There's not a lot to do. We can't really get out there to do activities, but the time that you get to spend with the family is, you can't take that back. So just take that time to enjoy.
Thank you, Dr. Clayman. Nick, they care about just one thing right now, buddy. One forecast for one person.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, you bet. And I've got it for you here. Christmas Eve forecast. Okay, I mentioned earlier on, we've got that mixed precipitation, freezing rain out toward the Durham area. Overnight, everybody kind of switching over to snowfall there, 5 to 15 centimeters, depending on where you are. Less in the east end of the GTA, more in the west end of the GTA. Tomorrow, everybody seeing some light snowfall, snow squalls to the north end, -1 degree, wind chill of -8. It will be a nice day to stay inside or maybe get outside and enjoy a little bit of the snow. Parks are good.
I think you and little man will be in the backyard enjoying some snow. Merry Christmas to you and yours,
Yeah,
Nick.
Merry Christmas to you, Dwight.
And to all our viewers, a very happy holidays. That is our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. Marvel Tarouk will have your next local news at 6 o'clock on Boxing Day. For local news anytime, you can always just visit our website, cbc.ca/Toronto. Have a great night and a great Christmas Eve, everybody. Stay safe, stay home. We'll see you back here at Boxing Day.